Hi, everyone. Welcome to our launch call for Red Hot Summer. Um, my name is Lena. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of the co-chairs of National YDSA, which stands for the Young Democratic Socialists of America. We're hosting this call alongside, and this program called Red Hot Summer, alongside the groups, the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, EWOC, the Rank and File Project, RFP, DSA's BDS Working Group, National Students for Justice in Palestine, or NSJP, and the Palestinian Youth Movement. So I'm so excited to have all of our speakers on this call, and I'm going to pass it to Alex Press, who is a staff writer at Jacobin and who will be facilitating the call for us.
Great. Hey, everyone. Can you see me? Looks like it. So thanks, Lena. Thanks so much. I'm Alex Press. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a staff writer at Jacobin, where I cover the labor movement. This is the launch call for Red Hot Summer, which is YDSA's 6-week program open to any young worker. The goal of this program is to give young workers the tools to organize their workplace and political education about how the labor movement can play a role in winning fights for the left against racism, sexism, homophobia, climate change, and imperialism. So YDSA's program here has 2 tracks. There's a labor organizing track, which meets on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And there's a labor solidarity track that meets on Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern time. You can sign up for either or both tracks. If you're really enthusiastic, do both at dsausa.us/RHS2023. And I believe one of my co-hosts here, has put the link in the chat. So tonight our call has 7 incredible speakers. I'm going to try to keep them to under 5 minutes each. Then we'll have a Q&A section. So each speaker is going to talk a little bit about the labor movement and its importance in combating all forms of oppression. As they're speaking, importantly, I want you to submit 1 question, 2 questions, questions for everyone, questions for 1 person. Just put them in the chat, and then as our speakers present, we're going to, after that, grab some questions from the audience, and I'm going to ask them to those speakers. So do that throughout the call. Without further ado, our first speaker is Sarah Nelson, who is the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA. Hand it over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Alex. Hi, everybody. Sarah Nelson. I'm the president of the Association of Flight Attendants. We represent 50,000 flight attendants at 19 different airlines, and I use she, her pronouns. And I am a 27-year union member, so probably longer than most of you have been alive. But our union was founded in 1945. Organized first at United Airlines and then quickly organized throughout almost the entire industry, with the exception of Delta Airlines, that started its anti-union campaign way back in the 1940s and successfully kept unions off the property, with the exception of the pilots who had organized earlier in the 1930s. When we organized, we were only women, and we were typically on the job for only 18 months. And it was our union was formed really to fight through the discrimination that kept us in a job for only 18 months. We had to quit when we got married, or when we got pregnant, or when we gained more than 115 pounds. And you couldn't be a man to do this job, and you couldn't be anything other than a white woman. And so we beat a lot of discriminatory battles throughout the years to make this job something that anyone with the heart of a flight attendant could have. And I just want to note that 85% of the airline industry is organized. The airlines are hiring right now. So one thing that young Democratic Socialist members can do is to get hired at an airline. You're going to be a union member. You're going to be able to fly all over, helping other people in their fights too, and all around the world, by the way. And you can be a part of a strong union that was originally founded by women, has always been led by women, but is now working very, very hard to be inclusive of everyone. And we have the most diverse international leadership that we've ever had in the union. Just last year, I was joined by Keturah Johnson, who is a 35-year-old queer Black woman who is also a military veteran. and Dante Harris, who came out of United Airlines also, who's the first Black man to serve as Secretary Treasurer of our union. And we are encouraging everyone to get involved in our union. In fact, we've got, we worked really hard to be inclusive and make sure that everybody understands. Instead of just having one union pin, we have focused really hard on making diversity union pins to throw our arms wide open and have everyone feel that they have a space here. And it has made a difference. Just in creating these little pins, we suddenly have a group of leadership that look much more like the union that we have created by beating back all of these discriminatory battles. Let me tell you about one of them. So we fought really hard for domestic partnership benefits, and we fought hard for that at United Airlines. And in the process, we were pushing and pushing and pushing to win at United. And at the same time, there was an effort, the first effort across the country in San Francisco for a city ordinance for domestic partner benefits. This is the first foothold that we got on the road to marriage equality and further equality in the workplace. And so we won that at United Airlines, and the rest of the airlines had to follow. And this year, it's Pride Month. And United Airlines is celebrating the fact that they were the first airline to be so inclusive, but they wouldn't have been inclusive if it hadn't been for our union. And they failed to put that in the text that's in the airline magazine. So we women mostly early on, and many of them actually queer women who found a home in their union. They had an explanation for why they weren't getting married in a time when that was not something that was open, or you were able to be open about. They could love their careers and fight for their union and live the lives that they wanted to live. This was one of the first places that women could actually join the workforce outside and be outside the home. And so we have fought forward, and we continue to fight forward on this, and we continue to fight forward on reproductive rights, which are absolutely economic rights. Social justice is directly tied to economic justice. And I want to be very clear, everybody on this call understands that we don't just live in a democracy, we live in an economy that is has a chokehold by capitalism. And capitalism is only about profit. So if people don't rise up and take on capitalism, our politics are never going to change. They're not going to change just by running new candidates who are going to be good, active candidates to fight for us. We have to have the power where it exists, and that's with the money. Money is controlling our politics right now. So organizing is how you're going to change all of that, and you can change it very quickly. People are excited about unions because they see that going to the voting box, yeah, that may be important, and it is, but you can make real change right in your community, right where you work, right where you live, by joining with your coworkers from everywhere, fighting through all the things that they try to have divide us, and finding common demands in our work, and understand that we're a part of a working class that is inclusive across the spectrum, including immigrant workers and people from other countries as well, who we have to fight around this world. Our labor movement is worldwide. I want to share one thing with you that's really important. In our union, we are member-led. It is only rank and file members who can become officers in the union. And it is really important to understand, in this labor movement, the labor movement is not just for the people who hold union cards. The labor movement is for anyone who wants to have a union in their workplace. And we have to put it in the hands of tens of millions of people if we are going to save our planet, if we are going to actually achieve freedom and justice for all, if we are going to do all the things that we care about. And Alex is going to cut me off, but I have a lot more to say, obviously. I've been doing this a long time. And I just want to say I'm super energized by your organizing, your action at college campuses across the country. And you are forming the next vanguard of the labor movement. It's going to rise up from youth. It's on you. And we're here to cheer you on.
I really didn't want to cut you off, Sarah. Thank you so much. Thanks again. Sarah was on this call last year, and thanks for, plays a real, I think, important role in the U.S. labor movement. So thank you for that. Next up, we have Willa Morris, who's a DSA member and labor organizer. Willem, up to you. Go ahead.
Hey, everyone. My name is Willa Morris. For the last couple of years, I was the chair of the YDSA National Labor Committee, and I had the pleasure for being a participant and a leader in Red Hot Summer. It was really incredible last summer to see so many people take the lessons from this program and apply it directly to their lives. We had people organizing Amazon warehouses. We had people organizing at Starbucks. And I've watched dozens and dozens of student workers take these lessons and organize their workplace. So the first thing I want to say is that if you're interested in labor organizing, this is the place for you to be. But for me last summer, I wasn't planning on organizing my workplace. I worked at an Alaskan salmon cannery, which is a job that I didn't take to organize. I took to put myself through college, and I only worked there 6 weeks every summer, but you worked there 120 hours every week. And I went there to support myself. But I noticed that even in Alaska, there were the same conditions that applied there as it applied when I was a barista in California or when I was a lumberjack in Montana. It was that the bosses tried to keep the workers divided in order to keep their power with themselves. And so I remembered that all of the skills that I learned at Red Hot Summer were applying for the job that I was at in Alaska, because half of the workers in the Alaskan cannery were like college students like me or people who were low on money. But half of the people in the warehouse that I was at were Central American immigrants who didn't speak any English and who were getting exploited on the job. None of the managers knew how to speak English. None of the announcements in the workplace were in English. And so they were just kind of getting divided into the worst jobs in the factory, not able to participate like everyone else. In addition to like their exploitation, everyone was being screwed over by the fact that all of the workers on our shift were uncomfortable by being isolated and singled out for harassment and things like that. So what I decided to do is I knew that I couldn't form a union. I didn't have enough time for that. But I decided that I was going to have a workplace petition and get every single person on my shift to sign a petition that all announcements in the workplace should be made in Spanish as well as in English so that we could all be treated fairly. This is like a simple victory that we won when we marched on the boss together with Spanish coworkers and English coworkers together. But it was also a massive victory in terms of like the change that it had in terms of the power for the workplace. It would have been one thing for me to go out by myself and complain and maybe not actually get the change that I wanted. But it wasn't just me. It was dozens and dozens of people from Guatemala, Alaska, Montana, El Salvador, challenging the boss together and realizing that we had the collective power to change the way that we were treated. And we didn't just win this change in the way that the announcements were made at work. We made a victory because all of us are treated with more respect afterwards as well. So the first thing I want to say is that even if you're a Starbucks barista, an Alaskan warehouse worker, these skills in these training are for you, because all of these labor organizing skills apply to wherever you were at. And I've seen after I graduated, I have a job now as a organizer for Teamsters for a Democratic Union. And so after moving from Montana and Alaska, I now host organizing trainings in Kansas City and Ohio and Rhode Island and New York City with Tony. And all of the skills that I ever learned in this kind of stuff came from YDSA. They came from being a socialist who was learning how to organize other coworkers at my university, organize other coworkers at my factory, and now organize my friends and coworkers at UPS. And so I think that if you're here today, it's because you're interested in joining the labor movement. And it might be that you have success in organizing your job right now, but it might be that you learn these skills that stick with you for the rest of your life, because we're all going to go out in the world and have these experiences that are going to change the way that we experience our work life. The very last thing I say is that I'm pretty shy. Like a lot of you guys, like going out into the workplace is really difficult for me. I'm introverted. I have like a hard time doing these kind of calls like this. But the biggest thing that I got from Red Hot Summer is that I saw hundreds and hundreds of people just like me participating in changing the world together. We would all get together every week and report back like, oh, this is kind of difficult, this is kind of scary, but we're all doing it together. These aren't like really complicated skills that no one can learn. All of us can do these things. But when we're here together with hundreds and hundreds of people on the call, what we're doing is gaining confidence in that as young socialists, we can go out and change the world together.
Willem, thank you so much for that. And just echoing that this is not something that people are just...
I hope they're not talking about me right now because I can't hear anything.
Hassan, we can hear you. Welcome. That is our guest speaker.
I have the virtual camera.
So this is Hassan Piker, Twitch streamer and
okay, I can't show you guys. Oh wait, am I not muted? Fuck.
No, you're not muted. Hassan, can you hear me? Hello. Hassan, hello. He was our next speaker. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to speak. We'll give him 1 minute. Let me shoot him a text. Hassan, can you hear us, or should we go to the next speaker? All right, well, I guess we're going to go to the next speaker then, if you can't figure it out. Yeah, you're good.
Hello?
Hey, Hassan, you want to go ahead?
I am so sorry. Okay, I'm Hassan Piker. Pronouns he, him. I am a professional idiot online, as you guys can probably tell if you don't know who I am. Once again, I'm totally unqualified to be here. But thank you for inviting me. I am here to show support to Hot Labor Summer like I did last year. I unfortunately am also in Japan right now and incredibly jet lagged. So I apologize. I'm not going to show my screen because I'm on a new computer here. But I'm here to show support. I'm here to talk to you guys. Whatever you guys want to hear from me. I know one of the questions was, why should people who are watching the stream online get involved in the labor movement and sign up for training like Red Hot Summer, even if they feel scared or unconfident? Well, there are a lot of people in my community specifically that have taken part in organizing in their workplaces. And I think that they've done a really good job. I think Chipotle in Lansing, Michigan was one of the examples I remember. And it's truly important because you feel completely powerless in your life. You feel completely powerless when you're facing these institutions. You see all of these different forms of oppression in your everyday life. And there's not really any kind of control that you have over that. And it's understandable to feel like you have no say in the matter, that you can't make changes that are meaningful in your life. You have no control, but unionization and the power of collective action, collective bargaining in your workplace is probably the most effective mechanism of control in order for you to claw back a level of autonomy, like a piece of your life, a piece of your humanity, I would say. And that's why I'm a big supporter of labor unions.
That was perfect, Hassan. Thank you so much. And thanks for getting here from Japan. Enjoy the rest of the trip.
I'm so sorry.
And before you log off, Hassan, we're just going to throw up on the screen here just a QR code for people to sign up for Red Hot Summer, since I'm sure many of your audience.
When I show that, it's gonna, hold on. Let me change my. I'm gonna throw it up on my screen really quickly so you guys can see it. There's a QR code that is on screen. I'm gonna show it for you guys. Just don't show my screen on your end on the Zoom call, I think, because okay. I'm using a virtual camera. Okay. Here you go, guys. I'm perfect. Smaller.
And I'll just say for people as well, just to be sure you get that, you can also sign up at dsausa.us/RHS 2023. So thanks so much to everyone who joined from Hassan's audience, and thanks, Hassan. Next up, we're going to have Lexi Pryor, who is a student organizer from the Columbia University Resident Advisors Collective.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lexi. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a student worker as well as an organizing committee member at Columbia Barnard's YDSA chapter, and I also helped organize the independent Columbia University Resident Advisor Collective, which recently won our union election with a 95% yes vote. Cura initially formed when workers just came together and started talking to each other about issues they were experiencing in their workplace, which is something that any student worker can do, any worker can do. We had numerous all RA meetings where we discussed the need for improved pay, clear and fair disciplinary policy, as well as a better crisis response for both residents and RAs than public safety. So a group of RAs who just started coming together and talking, wrote a petition to address concerns brought up during this meeting. We started circulating it, and over 1,000 student workers, alums, resident advisors, and student organizations signed on. As a result, we immediately got a new compensation policy from Columbia. So we continued organizing during the school year with one-on-one conversations, getting to know everyone in our workplace, holding town halls, socials, and continued having meetings with our supervisors to communicate common issues. While we were organizing our union, we also ended up winning a $1,000 raise, an RA advisory board, and a reduction in our weekend duty hour shifts from 24 hours to 11 hours. And I'd like to reiterate, this is all before we won our union by 95%. Collective action works. RAs are one of the fastest growing union forces on undergraduate campuses. We provide critical care labor that's often undervalued, like a lot of care labor done predominantly by people of color, low income and first generation students, and those that are feminine presenting. Universities can't function without student workers who are responsible for keeping buildings operational and providing a positive student experience. Essentially, I just want to iterate that Cura means a lot to me because we were a union even before we won our union election. A union is a group of workers engaging in collective action, but in my experience, a union also has to do with feelings of love and solidarity between people who may only have a job in common. Because of that connection we built between workers, the experience of being an RA at Columbia has changed forever. As a union and a group of people that's gained enormous wins, we now feel like we have power and community within this broken institution, and we can leverage those things. We're already working with other campus unions to sync up our contract negotiations and building solidarity between other political groups on campus. But in the future, with our contract negotiations coming up, we're hoping to address issues that may not directly affect RAs in the scope of their role, but may affect them as students and individuals in the community, such as addressing poor living conditions in dorms, some of which are also residential buildings for community members in Harlem and Morningside Heights. At the end of the day, organizing a union seems really, really difficult, but it's just about talking to your coworkers and building community and relationships with those around you on campus and beyond. It's something that you watching the Zoom can do. I promise.
Thank you so much, Lexi. Next up, we have Omar Barghouti, who's the co-founder of the Boycott, Divest, and Sanction Israel movement, known as BDS. So Omar is in a time zone that wouldn't work for this call. So he prepared a video that we're going to screen for you all. So let's, Lena, go ahead. Lena, there's no audio.
Sorry, let me.
There was for a second there.
A genocidal siege on Gaza and its far-right government and its strong fascist components escalating the ongoing Nakba of gradual ethnic cleansing and dispossession of indigenous Palestinians, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu said ahead of his recent meeting with the post-fascist Italian Prime Minister, quote, "History does not favor the virtuous, nor who's morally superior. It favors the strong," end of quote. The BDS Movement for Palestinian Rights, believes that strength and morality are not mutually exclusive. For 18 years, we've been building people power in a strategic yet morally consistent manner to end state, corporate, and institutional complicity in Israel's 75-year-old regime of settler colonialism and apartheid. Despite the pain and unspeakable loss, Palestinians also see an unprecedented opportunity in the current Israeli government, the most far-right, racist, fundamentalist, authoritarian, corrupt, sexist, and homophobic. It constitutes an unmasked continuation of Israel's ongoing regime of oppression against Palestinians and, simultaneously, a rupture with the status quo in its far-reaching plans for judicial, social, cultural reforms, predominantly affecting Jewish Israeli settler colonial society. Its policies, particularly given the ongoing Palestinian resistance, have drastically impacted Israel's financial and economic sectors, causing capital flight, high-tech migration, Moody's credit outlook downgrade, disappearing investments, and collapsing investor confidence. In fact, over 250 Jewish American business leaders have warned of the destruction of Israel's economy, saying they may be forced to divest, while the former chair of Israel's National Economic Council predicts two scenarios for Israel's economy: a heart attack or cancer. 90 Democratic members of the US Congress have called on the Biden administration to apply significant pressure on Netanyahu's far-right government. Suddenly, US boycotts of Israeli senior government ministers, divestment from Israel's high-tech sector, and calls for targeted sanctions against the Israeli government have become acceptable. Though they entirely erase the Palestinians and are solely motivated by saving Israel from itself, these extraordinary calls cannot but normalize and legitimize BDS tactics. All this provides us with an unprecedented opportunity to further our struggle for freedom, justice, and equality. But opportunities alone do not lead to change. They only provide the fertile ground for it. We still need agency. We still need to build more people power and stronger intersectional alliances that integrate our struggle with struggles for racial, economic, social, gender, indigenous, and climate justice. Israel, after all, is today widely recognized as a model for the world's far-right and white supremacists and a partner of authoritarian regimes and fascist groups, selling its military security technologies and spyware like Pegasus as battle-tested. Israel exports cyber weapons, disinformation, and election rigging services as a diplomacy tool worldwide. In short, apartheid Israel harms not only Palestinians, but also millions of others globally. BDS provides the most effective form of international solidarity with our liberation struggle. Launched in 2005 by the absolute majority in Palestinian society, BDS calls for ending Israel's military occupation and system of apartheid, as well as the right of Palestinian refugees to return to their homes and receive reparations. It categorically opposes all forms of racism, including Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. In short, BDS targets complicity, not identity. A 2022 poll shows that 16% of all Jewish Americans support BDS. BDS is also supported by trade unions, farmers' coalitions, as well as racial, social, and climate justice movements worldwide, representing tens of millions of people. It has made large multinationals like G4S most recently end their involvement in Israel's crimes. Giant sovereign funds from Norway, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and New Zealand, and elsewhere, as well as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have divested from complicit companies and banks. This year alone, so far, mayors and city councils from Barcelona in Catalonia to Liège and Verviers in Belgium, from Oslo in Norway to Belém in Brazil, have taken decisive measures against Israeli apartheid and the companies supporting it. Dock workers' unions in Oakland, California, and Durban, South Africa have in the past few years refused to handle Israeli ships. Many mainstream churches from South Africa to the US have supported BDS or divested from complicit companies and complicit banks. Ending complicity requires a principled yet strategic, gradual, goal-oriented focus that prioritizes the following 5 points. First, defending the right to BDS as free speech, and fighting the growing anti-Palestinian McCarthyism, which is used as a template for repressive measures against other justice movements. 2, pressuring public institutions and labor unions to divest from not just Israel bonds, but also companies involved in grave human rights violations, including in Israel's illegal colonies and apartheid regime. They should also exclude them from procurement. 3, supporting the academic and cultural boycott of Israeli institutions. 4, joining strategic campaigns against complicit corporations. 5, calling for cutting US military funding to Israel and reinvesting it instead in social and racial justice projects at home. To end, Palestinians know that we can count on progressive, anti-war, anti-imperialist supporters of Palestinian rights to shatter the walls of silence, to channel your moral outrage into strategic campaigns that can finally tip the balance of power towards Palestinian liberation. Thank you.
Great. I want to thank Omar so much for sending that video along, and for YDSA for getting him to be a part of this call. So we have 2 more speakers. So I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions that you haven't submitted in the Q&A tab down at the bottom, you should submit those now. So next up is Philip Patterson, who is a student organizer from RPI YDSA and the RPI Resident Advisors Union, OPEIU Local 153. So Philip, go ahead.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. My name is Philip. Pronouns are he, him. So I'm an undergraduate research assistant, now a resident assistant, which will become key later at RPI, president of RPI Socialist Chapter, and vice grand marshal of the RPI Student Senate. So my involvement with the labor union, like it was said, was that I helped launch the RPI Resident Assistant Union with OPIU Local 153, wearing the t-shirt right now. The organizer I worked with, Scott Williams, is also on the call, so glad to see he's here as well. So yeah, start off, like many of you, I had been watching, or maybe many of you have been watching Hassan Piker's content for a while, along with other progressive media like the Majority Report, and I had been hearing that labor organizing was one of the most effective ways to bring about lasting material change for the working class. So I was eager to get involved in organizing, and when I saw the Red Hot Summer launch call from one of Hassan's posted YouTube videos, because I like binge that stuff like all day, like a lot, so I really wanted to get involved, so I signed up. Red Hot Summer trained me, equipped me with many valuable resources, and provided a solid network for organizing. I then joined my school's Socialist or YDSA chapter during my fall semester, so when a resident assistant came to our chapter to discuss our issues, we had everything needed to get started. Problem was, I wasn't really an RA myself, or resident assistant myself, so I had a slow start organizing the workers, but that was all right. For those of you who aren't workers, now going to the labor solidarity track, or the one for people who aren't currently workers, I was in the same boat as you. You can still do a lot to help as a student, and as you've heard, you'll probably see. Anyways, early on in organizing, thanks to Anna, I learned it was super important to foster development of organic leaders, one of whom being Adrian Roman. I'd be sad not to mention him. He was like really instrumental in getting the union off the ground. And he's the type of person you'll learn to identify in the labor organizing track for people who are currently workers. By the time Adrian started leading the union, we had an organizing committee about 10% of the workforce, which is usually you want to hit before moving to the next stage, as you will also learn, which led to exponential growth. Then within about 4 short months, which was crazy, the RPI RAs won their union. We couldn't have done this without the help of the hardworking RAs, union leaders, YDSA members, and allies within our community. There was a lot of support that was shown. But there were also challenges, like backlash from some sectors of the community, mainly freshmen who didn't like their RAs, which was kind of funny and weird to combat. Yeah, it was weird, and RPI refused to voluntarily recognize the union, which we were not happy about. Besides this, though, and through this, we held strong and focused on getting support from the RAs. In fact, I was able to show solidarity for the resident assistants, even though I wasn't one, by coordinating YDSA's efforts to support the RA union any way they needed, and passing a motion with Adrian and our student government that basically had the student body express their support for the RAs unionizing. So there's a lot you can do even when you're not part of the workers being organized. Now the RPI RAs are starting to negotiate their contracts, so we hope to see RA conditions improving soon. And then for people who are like young workers who are thinking about organizing but scared to take the first step, my advice is be like, just take that first step, but get started with some other people, like get started with others if you can. And that's really important because with a solid and growing community, you can face down almost any retaliation. I'm sure that by attending Red Hot Summer or talking with your friends or educating the people around you, you can find said community that will support you in organizing efforts. After all, your job is not to do the good fight alone, but to empower others to fight for themselves, fight for others, and fight together. Glad to see you all here, and I hope we can organize together in the future.
Thank you so much, Philip. That was an excellent story of how in just 1 year, you can then have done so much that you're on this call next year. So I want to thank you for your time, Philip. Our final speaker from a very important union, Tony Rosario, is a Teamster from Local 804 in New York. Tony, go ahead.
Hi, nice to be here. Appreciate all of you. I'm Antonio Rosario. A lot of you know me as Tony. I started with UPS as a young part-time preloader, making $9.50 an hour back in 1994. 3 years later, when I was 20, I would say maybe 23 years old, 22 going on 23, the picture that was up, was me during the 1997 strike. It showed the unity between part-time workers and full-time workers and what we could win together when we stand together. And it showed me moving forward how much more we could win together, as time went by. But then, we had bad leadership. Things got bad. I became a proud member of Teamsters for a Democratic Union. When I joined TDU, I realized that there was a way we could win in 2016 when we almost won and lost by 6,000 votes. Then we said, well, you know what? We're just going to have to go back to the drawing board and try again. Thankfully, during that time, I became a shop steward, became a fighter, an activist. And now I'm an organizer for the International Union. It's part of the Amazon division for the New York market. And it's been an interesting experience. And on top of that, we were able to change leadership at the top. We were able to win new leadership with Sean O'Brien, and you all know that there's a possible strike emanating. Some of the things that I'm going to talk about here is how powerful that strike can be, right? Because as UPSers, we have the largest private collective bargaining agreement in North America. UPS workers, 340,000 of us decide to strike. That is 6% of the gross domestic product in this country. We want to talk about shutting down capitalism. We want to talk about giving the power back to the workers, back to the people. There's one way to do that, and that is to get involved in logistics and start organizing, getting together, get a job at UPS, get a job at Amazon, get a job at any logistics industry. And you can definitely make a big impact. 6% of the GDP locks up the minute we hit the streets, and they don't want that. I was actually missed a little of a call tonight because we were listening to Sean O'Brien talk about the 55 tentative agreements that were just put out today. And I can tell you right now, the company's got to be scared because I could not believe a lot of the things that we had won, including air conditioning. There were so many things that you can do when you have that kind of leverage. When I was in strike in 1997, there was only 185,000 of us, and we still made a huge impact on the economy. Within 2 weeks, the company bent the knee. And I can promise you, if we strike again, it's not going to be like 97, right? Because we're in 2023 now, and there are so many people more involved. The union popularity has gone up. People know how important it is to be in the union. There's all types of organizations now that are out there supporting us, including the DSA, including organizations like Align, Make the Road, NYCC. I mean, it is becoming a huge movement, and everybody's getting involved. At the end of the day, and I know I'm running short on time because I could talk about this stuff forever. I just want to make sure that everybody on this call knows that we were all your age once, and things weren't like they are now back then. And you have so many of us willing to educate and advise and help you in any way that we can. What I could tell you, what I went through in 97 was I was a little disheartened because of the way after winning that strike, everything just went kaputski. And I was one of those workers who was disheartened and kind of put my head down and was worried about what was going to be our future like. But don't ever be disheartened. Keep fighting. There's a war on the working class in this country. And the only way we are going to win is by building an army of organizers. And you are it. You have to come up and start organizing and learning how to organizing and get together, because there's only one way to win. And that is if we do it together, organizing. And I'm going to leave it at that because I see Alex is ready to give me the hook. But thank you all for listening. And please, please organize, and organize some more.
Thank you so much, Tony. And I am not slotted for my own speech here, so I'll just piggyback on you and say that that is also my message to everyone on this call, that it is a great time to be committing to the labor movement. It is, I wish there had been something like this when I was college age so that I didn't have to learn it on my own or try to figure out where to plug in. So I just cannot emphasize enough that all of us on this call who are speaking, who've been around for a little longer, we all need you. And we want you, and we want to help advise in all of your fights, whatever the industry. So I just, underlining what Tony said. With that, I'm going to turn to some questions we've selected from the Q&A. We want to do about 20 minutes of these Q&As. So I'll just jump in. So the first one is from Ali or Ali A, I'm not sure which. The question is, I will attend UT Austin in the fall. There's no union for GAs and graduate workers. The hours and pay don't adjust to the rising cost of living. What can I do to organize in a space like that, which is surrounded by heavy Republicanism? It's not addressed to a specific speaker. I think there are a couple who might want to jump in, but I'll just open it up to any of the speakers if you want to give a minute or two response.
I was going to say really quickly, Alex, that don't allow the boss's divide to get into your mind. And one of the new ways to divide people is by political affiliation. And so we've really got to think of ourselves as the working class and identify with people in that way. Just because someone is registered a Republican, that doesn't mean that they don't have to pay their rent. That doesn't mean they don't have to pay the bills. That doesn't mean they don't have to pay tuition. They have the same issues you have. And it means when you're building your union, you get into the last place in America that is the non-self-selecting place. This is the place where it all comes together, and we find out that we have much more in common than anything that can divide us. So that's where you start. You start with the issues. You start asking the people around you, what do you care about? What do you need? What keeps you awake at night? And that's how you organize forward. And you're going to find out, everybody's going to find out that we have common demands that we can put forward and use our power together to get results.
Great answer. Anyone else from the higher ed or student organizers want to jump in on this? If not, I'll move on to the next question. So Porter O asks, what are some common ways to figure out if your coworkers would be interested in starting a union without risking being fired or the management catching on and tightening anti-union sentiment? I like this because I'm sure it's going to be addressed in the program, but I love that people already want the answers to this. So I'm sure anyone on this call could answer this one.
I'll just jump in real quick and say, feel them out. Having those one-on-ones is where it's at. Old school grassroots. Having a one-on-one conversation, asking those open-ended questions, keeping it between you and them, not divulging too much information about what you're trying to do, but trying to figure out where they're at in their space, what they're thinking about, what they would be willing to fight for. Once you get into their head and you get a little bit of that kind of information going, you start to feel them out a little bit, then maybe I would say move forward with trying to talk about some of the stuff you may be planning to do, but you got to vet them properly. We have like a whole clearing type way of doing things where we make sure you're trying to build let's say an OC, an organizing committee. You're building a circle of trust. You're not just going to let anybody into your circle of trust. So I would say definitely do some of that if that helps.
Any other speakers want to hop in on this one?
I'd just like to mention that you will be learning more about this later on. And if you go check labor notes, it's a really useful resource to use. And then YDSA helped out with that as well. They provided me with that resource. I actually made a customized, based off of the labor notes document, I made a customized guide for people to sort of suss out the vibes of like if people want to unionize or not, and then use that to organize. So you can take what's needed. You can take the general resources and then fit it to what you need, and then sort of help other people to do the same.
Great. Thanks so much, Philip. I'm gonna jump to a question from Eric F. Which companies or industries would you recommend for high school and teenage organizers to get jobs in if they want to pursue the rank and file strategy and unionize their workplace? We've already heard a pitch for logistics from Tony.
I'm gonna say it again, transportation. Come fly with me.
And Willem, if you're still on the call, I mean, I'd be curious. Oh, there you are. To hear from you since you were sort of helping lead this program last year, where you guys kind of are at YDSA on this question.
Yeah, I think, there are certain industries that have lots of union attention right now, like Starbucks. Whether you're a campus worker, if you get a job on campus, that's a good way to start. But I think one of the takeaways from what I was saying earlier is that wherever you're at, you can organize to win demands. I think sometimes when you're first getting on this call, it's like, oh, fuck, I don't even know what a card check is. I don't know what any of this stuff means. That can be really intimidating. You're just like, well, I'm just not going to do that. I'm going to wait until I'm ready for a union. But I never was in a union before I started organizing at Amazon when I used to work in Amazon. We organized our coworkers around certain issues, and we had petitions, we had walkouts, we have like online support groups. And so I think that like anywhere that you're at, even if you're not forming a union, just go hang out with your coworkers, talk to your coworkers, talk to people outside of work, build these kind of relationships. And then when you do have a job as a UPS driver in 10 years or in the new industry that we don't even know is strategic, you'll be able to have these skills. And I think that's the most important thing to take away from if you're 17, 18 years old and kind of overwhelmed by all of this stuff.
Great. Thanks, Willem. Any other speaker want to jump in on this, or can we move on to the next one?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick. My name's Jake. I'm one of YDSA's national co-chairs, and I actually just graduated in May with my master's degree to become a teacher here in New York. So some of the strategic industries that YDSA focuses on, a lot of these are not necessarily things you're going to go right into out of high school, but something to think about for the future are things like education and healthcare, because these services affect an entire community, not just one workplace. So I'm hoping to become a teacher in New York City, organizing within the teachers union there to push it into being more radical, and really, take workplace action that will shut all of New York City down, not just one specific workplace. And we'll be talking a bit more about like that longer term organizing and how you can get plugged into that as part of Red Hot Summer. So make sure you're signed up for the program to learn more about that.
Great. Thanks, Jake. And Lena or Jake, if you could just repost that link in the chat, I think that would be great. So the next is a really practical question that everyone encounters when forming a new union. This question comes from Aaron C. How do you deal with coworkers and colleagues' fears around the threat of their job security, the threat of retaliation, when you're starting to talk about collective organizing or creating a union? What's your answer to those fears?
I can add, when organizing Columbia RAs, we definitely experienced that a lot because people were coming from a variety of backgrounds. Some people knew about labor laws, some people didn't. We did a lot of research about the labor laws in New York, which was definitely helpful. But at the end of the day, labor notes is helpful, but also just validate their feelings. It's a reasonable request. It's a reasonable fear. They're not your enemy. And for having these fears. And I think a lot of what helped people was knowing there was power in numbers, getting to see the people who are organizing and realizing, wow, there are a lot of you. We're in this together, and just building that solidarity was really helpful. We actually had someone coming to organizing committee meetings who stepped back for a little bit because they were scared. And once they saw how many wins we had and how many people were supportive of us, they came back and they signed a card and thanked us for our work. So yeah, I'd say validate their feelings, make sure they know you understand, do your research, and just remember that you're all comrades at the end of the day.
Great. Thanks so much, Lexi. The next question, let's see. There's one specifically directed at Lexi and or Philip, so let's go with that one. This is from Lake L. Lake writes, we're in the infancy of trying to start an RA and undergraduate student staff union in my university. We're starting off with a few RAs on board with the idea. And before we start sending messages, reaching out to people and trying to build membership, we're trying to put together a cohesive strategy. Any ideas, tips, or tricks for getting started? Either Lexi or Philip can jump in.
Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly and say because you have a few RAs on board with the idea, I would say don't hesitate to send messages and start reaching out to people. Just do it. You know, you need to build a solid group of a lot of different people who may not necessarily just be RAs, but maybe working in different sectors. I know at Columbia, we have like a student fitness center, and all those workplaces have such different issues. They may have different bosses. I would just, it's awesome that you guys are already starting off with a few RAs on board, and I would build on that. You know, I would send messages to people over the summer or start having meetings and one-on-ones with folks in different industries or like different areas on campus. And start building a broader group of people who are able to access more people. And so that'll make it a lot easier, I think, for you to start passing cards and just getting to know people.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on. Well, first of all, Lake, I know you personally, and I'm not sure how much advice you really need, but I'm going to assume that this is directed towards the broader group of people who are in here, and also maybe, yeah, personally for yourself, but I know you're pretty knowledgeable about this. But when you first start off, you're going to want to map your workplace no matter what it is. And that helps you get a strategic sense of where and who to talk to. So for instance, for RAs, everyone RA has a different dorm. So you kind of want to build an organizing committee of a lot of a diverse range of people in both their like personal identity and also in the dorms that they're in. So for instance, we have like Barden, Bray, Nason Hall. We try to get like RAs from each individual dorm. It didn't end up working out that way, but it was, and honestly, because it didn't end up work out that way, it led it to some issues later where we had some gray areas in our organizing map that we couldn't get to in time because we just had no connections with the people at those dorms. So getting those connections early on is really good. And because you already have some RAs on board, you can sort of use your personal connections with the, you can ask the RAs to reach out to their friends and people that they trust the most. And then you can start to build a bigger group, and then you can start being more strategic. So yeah, getting that map done where you figure out who's in each dorm, getting a list of every single person who's an RA and figuring out where they are, and then sort of keeping track of who you trust the most at that moment is I think a good way to get started.
Great. Thanks, Philip. And if the speakers and the audience don't mind, I just want to extend this maybe 5 or 10 minutes past our end time of 9:30, just so we can have a couple more questions. If people have to hop off the call, I totally understand. This next question, I think, is a tough one, but an important one. It's from Bryce. Oops, I didn't realize my video was off. What is your advice for organizers operating on campuses that are in states where public sector collective bargaining is illegal? What's the best way to reach people on campus? This person is in Arizona and goes to Arizona State, and they said their campus union has a lot of trouble maintaining momentum because of the state level public sector union laws. Anyone can speak on this one.
When I was at the YDSA Winter Conference last year, a lot of our best labor organizing was happening in right to work states and states that outlaw collective bargaining. like Texas and Florida. Again, right now in the United States, we have like protections for collective bargaining, which is great. But 150 years ago, there weren't the same protections in place, and people had to think outside the box to be able to mobilize. Obviously, it's better to have unions that have collective bargaining enshrined in a contract, but until you get to that point, a lot of the skills are exactly the same if you're a union or not a union, which is just talking to your coworkers, getting together and taking action, which again sounds really simple. And but we're going to talk about the complexities of that throughout the program. So if you're interested, a lot of the people that are going to be attending this program are in situations just like you. There's going to be lots of people there from Texas, Arizona, and Florida. So it'd be a good time for you to come together with other people in other states so you can get to know each other and come up with solutions together.
Great, thanks, Willem. This next one's a really great question from Nolan. The question is as follows. So food service work at my university is very much an industry in desperate need of unionization. However, there's a very high turnover rate amongst our dining service workers, both student workers and full-time outside workers. How can we build a strong union while dealing with an extremely high turnover rate? I myself am a worker in the dining service at my university. I'm also one of the co-chairs of our university's YDSA chapter. What can I do?
I'll just speak quickly because I know I've been answering a couple questions, but this is actually an issue that RAs at Columbia have as well. We have really, really high turnover, like 40-50%. And what I say has really helped us this year, because we did have a lot of graduating seniors and people who left the position, was making sure to build those strong relationships with incoming students as well as younger folks. I myself am a rising junior, and I'll shout out Lena here because she really did the hard work of reaching out to sophomore and junior RAs and having one-on-ones and building those connections to make sure we still stayed involved. So now we still have a good organizing committee happening right now. I'd also say maintain institutional memory. That's really important. Write everything down. We have a campaign write-up that basically outlines every single thing we've done and how we've done it, as well as our wins. So then those wins are maintained. People remember they're happening. Finally, I'd say just make sure you're really, really working on those one-on-ones and reaching out to folks who you're working with, because if you let them know, hey, like this is happening to me, this isn't just happening to you, like this is a problem, they're going to remember that and they're going to pass that on. And you guys are going to maintain that relationship.
Right. Anyone else want to answer this one? All right. The next one's a great question from Eric. What would you recommend for immigrant youth who might not be able to work in a place like Amazon, but still want to contribute to the cause?
Look, it's important to pick a fight and go out and be a part of it and have people see that you're there. Keep showing up. And and making those connections too. Asking people out on picket lines to tell their stories. You're going to build a repertoire, first of all, to share with other people. You're going to start making those connections yourself. And people are going to have a chance to see immigrant youth in a way that maybe they hadn't had the opportunity to see before. It's really important to understand that when you see a picket line, it's very likely a lot of people who think that they come from a lot of different ideologies. But on that picket line, they share a common purpose. And so you may be exposing them to the first time that they think that they've ever even spoken to an immigrant before, whether they know it or not. And so it may be an opportunity to change minds right there. And there are plenty of picket lines to choose from all across the country. Look for those, come on out and be a part of the joy and the spirit and that sharing of stories and building community. And Alex, I just want to say one other thing too. It is awesome throughout this entire night to see the wisdom and the encouragement and the comments in the chat. so many people have offered so many answers right there that are so thoughtful and really helpful. So pretty awesome.
Yeah, I want to take this time now. I was going to wrap up here and hand it off to Jake to close out the call. But before I hand it off for good, I just want to say thanks to everyone who came to this call. Thanks to all our speakers as well. And echoing what Sarah said here, just great wisdom in this chat. And these are many of the people on this call could have been speakers themselves. So I'm just very glad to be a part of this. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it to Jake from YDSA to close us out here.
Thanks, Alex. I just have a few quick announcements and reminders before we end our call for tonight. So first up, if you haven't already signed up for Red Hot Summer, make sure that you sign up right now. It'll only take you a few minutes to fill out this form, and that ensures that you are all set and ready to participate in our program. As a reminder, we do have 2 tracks as part of Red Hot Summer this year. So track 1 is for labor organizing training, and that is going to begin a week from today on Wednesday, June 28th. And track 2, which is political education and labor solidarity work. I saw someone in the chat ask how to find picket lines in their area. That's going to be part of what we're talking about in that track. And that session starts this Sunday. We'll be talking about how the fight for abortion and reproductive justice connects to organized labor. So make sure that you sign up for the program because you don't want to miss that. The link to register for the Zoom calls for that track is also in the chat. Next, Red Hot Summer is put on by YDSA, the Young Democratic Socialists of America. If you are not already a member of YDSA, think about joining today. We have chapters on more than 120 campuses across the country and more than 2,000 members organizing for YDSA. There's a link in the chat where you can find more info about joining and starting a chapter of your own. And then finally, last announcement before we close out. We have a Discord server that we've set up to keep in touch throughout this program. You can join via the link in the chat. That Discord is going to allow us to stay in touch between sessions, send announcements and reminders, and share resources and news as they come up throughout the program. This has been an incredible call. It's been great to hear from so many amazing speakers. Thanks everyone for tuning in. And I think that's everything we have. All right, make sure you sign up if you haven't already.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks to YDSA for putting this together and asking me to help host again. And congrats to the person in the chat who got hired by Starbucks today. That's promising. See you all. Good luck with the program.
Keeping the Zoom chat open so that we can see all the beautiful goodbyes that people are giving. Bye, everyone. I think I'm going to close the Zoom now.